Kai Wei went to the inn to book a room, whereas Huang Yueli went window shopping around the small town. This was a habit that she had built up from her past life. No matter where she visited, she would go for a tour first. No one could be sure that in these remote little villages or towns, there wouldn't be any rare speciality or materials. Many top-quality materials in the Sky Emperor City were hyped up to rocket-high prices, whereas it could be easily purchased at a very low price at its place of origin. This time, Huang Yueli's luck had indeed been not bad. Hidden in a corner of the bazaar at a little stall, she collected a 4th-level fire attribute material, Firestone. Although this material's level wasn't too high, but it was extremely rare, and to be able to sweep in so much stock at such a low price, it was unexpectedly surprising. After she completed her shopping, she headed towards the inn that Kai Wei spoke about. Who knew the minute she had just walked to the entrance, she already heard disputes. How can you all do this? We were obviously the first to reach here. Oh, of course we need to abide the first come, first served rule. All of you are so unreasonable. When our third miss returns, she'll teach you a lesson. Kai Wei's voice contained traces of timidity, but she still resolutely took her stand. Shut your gap. You're just a lowly servant. What right do you have to speak to this princess? And you dare to snatch the room from me? Still not going to get lost? Then don't blame B for not showing mercy. Li Shui'er lowered her chin as she said coldly. At the same time, her profound energy was released from her body, instantly forcing Kai Wei to take several steps backwards. Boo, but I was the one who came first, and our third miss will be returning any time. So what if she returns? Will I be frightened off by her? Li Shui'er's intonation was filled with disdain. Who does she think she is? She's just hugging on the Prince Yuang's leg. This princess will repeat myself again. Get lost quickly. You, Kai Wei resolved not to give in. A chilly frost formed in Li Shui'er's eyes as she was prepared to strike. Just at this moment, an icy cold voice reverberated from behind. Stop! Following that, a jet of profound energy stronger than Li Shui'er's came streaming from her back. This stream of profound energy was like a vortex, spiraling towards Li Shui'er as the surround air started to become scorching hot. Li Shui'er's expression suddenly turned pale. She subconsciously stepped backwards in an attempt to avoid it, but the speed of this profound energy was simply too fast, and she was not able to avoid it in time. Just as Li Shui'er was about to be struck heavily, hanging by a thread, Imperial Tutor suddenly dodged, and just by a step, moved from the door and stood in front of Li Shui'er, moving her behind him. Huang Yueli's profound energy shot against a 4th-degree realm practitioner, but it made Imperial Tutor crease his eyebrow only, and not causing much damage. Imperial Tutor lifted his head, and on his wrinkled face, there were obvious signs of rage. Byrooli, you actually dared to strike against the princess. How dare you not ignore the disparities and offend your superiors? What punishment do you think you deserve? Imperial Tutor unleashed the coercion power of 4th-degree realm in an attempt to oppress Huang Yueli. However, Huang Yueli's face was filled with chilly sniggering. We're already out of the South Yu Kingdom, so what princess airs are you putting on? Your princess status is only equivalent to a village girl in the Sky Cloud City. What's more, haven't you already been deposed? Shut up. Li Shui'er stepped out from Imperial Tutor's behind. Byrooli, don't think that I don't know. That 5th-degree realm bodyguard didn't accompany you this time. You can also listen on. Without his protection, you'd better wise up and tuck away your tail. Li Shui'er snapped. Huang Yueli's brows lifted after she heard what she said. She was still thinking when these scums had met her earlier. They didn't even dare to lift a finger against her, so obviously they were frightened of her. But just a day had passed, and Li Shui'er was now actively provoking her. The change was simply too sudden. So the reason was because they realized that M.O.E. wasn't around, so they had thought that she, Huang Yueli, was a little lamb waiting to be sacrificed. How naive and foolish was that? Huang Yueli replied, Oh, how did you know that M.O.E. did not follow me on this trip? Perhaps he had just left for a little moment, and after a little while, he will meet up with me. Li Shui'er saw her composed look and let out a snigger. That's enough. Stop pretending. I'm very certain that bodyguard didn't follow you here. Our carriage had been following behind you for the entire route and had not seen that black-robed bodyguard at all. What's more, there were only 2 ladies in the carriage. As for that well-built man, surely he won't squeeze into the carriage with you? As for your horses, they're not bad as well. There wasn't an extra horse, so that all goes to show that there is no extra person. Huang Yueli blinked and showed some signs of surprise. No wonder Li Shui'er was accepted as an armament master's apprentice. Her intelligence was indeed much higher as compared to by Ruo Qi. You're dead sure? Huang Yueli smiled imperturbably. Li Shui'er retorted, What? Still trying to put on a show to scare us off? I'm telling you it's impossible. Today there's only one superior room left in this inn, and you have to let us have it. Otherwise, don't blame us for not impolite to you. Without that black-robed bodyguard, you don't even have any second-degree realm practitioners under you, right? How are you going to deal with Imperial Tutor? Huang Yueli nodded when she heard her clear and logical explanation. Yes, your analysis is correct. According to your thinking, I should indeed tuck my tail away and hide myself. Not only should I give up the tomb to you, it would be best if I helped to pay for your bills as well. After all, you have a 4th-degree realm practitioner whom I cannot afford to offend. Li Shui'er lifted her chin as she said arrogantly, Since you're so tactful, we are not unreasonable people as well. Unfortunately, I don't know how tactful is written. Besides that, unfortunately, I'm not a reasonable person. Huang Yueli swept them with a cold glance as the smile on her face had completely disappeared. You can all scram. This superior room. I want it. Innkeeper, this is the payment for tonight, so give me the room key. She slammed an ingot of silver onto the table. Initially, Huang Yueli was not so finicky, and whether she stayed in the superior room or not, it wasn't something she was too bothered with. But since Li Shui'er and gang had intentionally provoked her, thinking to fight with her, then she purposely would not give in. She wasn't the Holy Mother, so how could she let those who intentionally provoke her so many times off that easily? Li Shui'er's face turned green when she heard this. How dare you reject the proffered wine and ask for the punishment wine, now that we've already left the South Yu Kingdom? Even if you were to die in the middle of the journey, my second royal brother would not know that we did it, and will not exact revenge for you. If you know what's good for you, you better scram now. Innkeeper, this room belongs to us, so give me the key now. You can also listen on. Saying that, Li Shui'er also smashed an ingot of silver onto the counter, which let out a bam sound. Both sides were ready to draw daggers, and left the shopkeeper who was standing by side shivering. The shopkeeper was an ordinary person, and to him, even though the person was only a 2nd-degree realm practitioner, he didn't dare to offend them. Now that there's so many of them, and they were really to fight it out, it had long left him turned green with fright. Now that these young ladies were both powerful with exceptional looks, they had both slammed ingots of silver right before him and were staring at him with a pair of chilly eyes. It was as though if he made a decision which did not match their wishes, they might just struck out against him. Shopkeeper's heart was already weeping, thinking that these ladies were too much. If they wanted to fight, why can't they leave his little shop to settle this? He was only out to make a living, so who had he offended? However, both sides were pressurizing him, with no intent to let him off. Shopkeeper was filled with fear and trepidation as he assessed the situation and commented in a small voice. I say, this young lady, although you're a powerful practitioner too, but the senior's cultivation over there seemed to be much higher than yours. You're still young, so why be discredited at this point of time? I shall pass the key over to them instead. These words were meant for Huang Yueli. After all, on this end, she was a 2nd-degree realm practitioner, while on the other end, there seemed to be several 2nd-degree realm practitioners plus the existence of a 4th-degree realm practitioner. Wasn't there a huge disparity between the two powers? You could call him a wallflower, but he was just an ordinary man, and all he wanted was to protect his shop and his own life. You are much more reasonable than that little slut by Ruoli. Li Shui'er's face broke out into a smile when she heard the shopkeeper said that. She glanced at Huang Yueli delightfully and stretched out her hand to retrieve the key from the counter. However, just before her fingers could even feel the key, it was snatched away by someone. Huang Yueli held out her hand and grabbed the key in her hand. "You let go. That's mine." Li Shui'er stretched out her hand to snatch, but Huang Yueli's fingers contracted and held the key in her palm. At the same time, a jet of scorching fire-attributed profound energy shot outwards. Li Shui'er knew things were going astray and also performed her profound skill, attacking her. Two gusts of profound energy smashed against each other within the shortest time possible, and immediately a winner was born. Li Shui'er couldn't match up against Huang Yueli's perfected profound energy and was defeated instantly. Fire-attributed profound energy pushed hard and struck onto Li Shui'er's chest. Umph! Li Shui'er let out a series of dull moaning as her body flew outwards uncontrollably. Seventh Princess. Shui'er. Bai Ruo Qi, an imperial tutor, cried out in shock. An imperial tutor had on the first moment flew out to catch Li Shui'er's falling figure. He pushed Li Shui'er into Bai Ruo Qi's arms, and without stop, he shot out a palm strike towards Huang Yueli's chest. "You little slut, it seems that you won't shed tears till you see the coffin. How dare you hurt her in front of me? Do you really think I cannot do anything to you?" Imperial Tutor was infuriated and displayed his ultimate profound skill, Pinium Thunderstrike. This profound skill was surly and overbearing, savage and rigid, and had been the ultimate skill that Imperial Tutor used to gain fame 200 years ago. Utilizing one's ultimate skill to deal with a second-degree realm practitioner was originally an embarrassing matter. You can also listen on. However, at this moment of time, Imperial Tutor didn't have the time to consider if it was an embarrassing matter or not. He only knew that Huang Yueli this lass was extremely abnormal. No matter if her cultivation realm was much lower than him, but once he was not careful, the possibility of failing in her hands was very large. Imperial Tutor had used all his power in this one strike, but the ending was out of his expectation. Huang Yueli didn't hide nor move, but only wave her hand gently. Imperial Tutor saw a silver light flash past, and by the time he was able to see clearly, a total of 18 flying daggers had already formed into a battle array, sealing of his left, right, up and down with no possible way out. Imperial Tutor was not able to evade, and judging by the dull, sea moss green shimmering on the flying daggers, it was likely tempered with deadly poison. One's life might be in danger if one had grazed just a little bit. Imperial Tutor had no choice but to forcefully retract his attack, turning into a defensive position. But in this way, although he had successfully avoided the flyer dagger's attack, the retraction of his profound energy irrigated back into his meridians, causing a backlash, which resulted in him spitting out a mouthful of blood on the spot. Under another wave of Huang Yueli's deft porcelain hands, that thin like cicadas set of flying daggers retracted back in her arms. Imperial Tutor had suppressed the second mouthful of blood, but upon seeing this, he couldn't help but spat out that suppressed blood. Teach just how powerful was that? A profound armament so powerful that could restrain a fourth-degree realm expert, and to be able to retract and reuse? Wasn't she undefeatable with that set of profound armament? Ordinary fourth-degree realm practitioners had no possibility of going anywhere near her. Where on earth did this lass gotten such a high-level profound armament? Was it Li Moying who had gifted it to her? Never in his wildest dreams would the Imperial Tutor ever thought that Huang Yueli was a fifth-rank armament master, so she had refined plenty of items like this in various patterns as well. If Imperial Tutor refused to give in and continued to fight it out with her, she didn't mind to offer him the chance of trying it out individually. Luckily, Imperial Tutor weighed the pros and cons and felt that it was not advantageous to go into a conflict with her in this little town, so he managed to oppress his anger. "Humph, such an old bread lass. No matter what, I'm still your senior. How dare you use your flying daggers against me? Do you even know a single bit of morals?" Huang Yueli twirled the set of keys with her little finger and dangled it in front of her. "Old man, you're too modest. If we're going to talk about upbringing and morals, How can I be compared to you? But I must still thank you for generously giving up this room to me. To refuse would be impolite, so I'll accept it. I shall not waste any more time, and will be going ahead to rest. Grab your time wisely and find yourself another lodging. I cannot be of help. Li Shui'er and the others stared at the set of keys hanging on Huang Yueli's slender fingers. That glare was about to give out smoke. Even Imperial Tutor could not gain any advantage over what more the others. So they naturally couldn't afford to be rash. They could only watch Huang Yueli walk up the stairs as she used the keys to open up the doors to the most luxurious guest room in the entire inn. Damn it! Li Shui'er's expression turned ugly as she slammed her fist onto the counter. Bai Ruoqi had a cold expression on her face as she watched the door of the superior room shut tightly. Master, what's going on? Don't tell me that even you can't do anything to that wretched lass, Bai Ruoqi. You can also listen on. Imperial Tutor's face flushed into a shade of red when Imperial Tutor heard what Bai Ruoqi asked. Dealing with her naturally can be done. That wretched lass's cultivation is far from mine, but she had several pieces of high-level profound armaments with her. I'm guessing that Li Moying left it in her possession as a form of defense. So if we were to go up against her directly, not only will loss outweigh gains, it will also delay the time we have to rest. Hearing that, Bai Ruoqi and Li Shui'er nodded their heads at the same time. This wretched lass had always been sinister. Although her cultivation was not high, but she brought along so many high-level profound armaments, not even knowing if she is able to draw out the greatest force of the profound armaments. So weak, and yet she brought so many treasures. She should be careful of being mugged. Isn't that right? Her own power is sparse, and in terms of cultivation, she cannot even match me. She only knows how to hug second royal brother's thigh to gain status. I despise such people. Imperial Tutor heard their discussions and felt somewhat embarrassed, because only he knew the might that Huang Yueli unleashed seemed to carry a sense of someone who had once helmed everything in her hands, and as for her profound energy, the purity level was universally shocking. Even Imperial Tutor, who had cultivated for several hundred years, felt far more inferior than her. If Huang Yueli had not displayed her profound armament, but directly accepted his strike, even Imperial Tutor could not tell who would have the upper hand. However, these matter would definitely not spill out from his mouth. Now that he was already been banished from South Yu Kingdom, he was already in dire straits, so he must never lose his face in front of Li Shui'er and Bai Ruoqi, these two lasses. Otherwise, he might really not have any way out. After rounds of discussion, their angers were still not appeased. Imperial Tutor said, "Just let this wretched lass count her lucky stars today. It's impossible for her to on alert all the time. Now that we have confirmed that Shadow Guard is no longer by her side, then we will have plenty of chances on the route. So sooner or later, we will be able to find an opportunity to teach her a lesson." Li Shui'er nodded as her lips curled upwards evilly. That's really great. She has so many high-level profound armaments, and it was obvious that she cannot retain it all. After we have dealt with her, we can make full use of it. That's a windfall. Yes, that flying dagger said earlier, I wonder which armament master had refined it. It looked simply mystical. We must put our hands on it. No matter what, night had fallen, and even if they wanted to continue on their journey, it was not possible. Li Shui'er and the rest could only choose to settle down in a standard guest room. In the superior room, Huang Yueli was listening to Kai Wei's depiction of Li Shui'er and the others' evil ways and words. Third Miss, you didn't see it with your own eyes. Seventh Princess and the rest have not given up yet, and earlier they were still discussing downstairs that next time we meet on the route, they would find opportunities to teach you a lesson that you will never forget, and they even had their eyes on that set of flying daggers that you own, saying they would definitely lay their hands on it. That tone sounded like Third Miss. Your profound armament was already in their possession. Pooey, never seen anyone that thick-skinned before. Huang Yueli looked at her agitated look and found it amusing as she shook her head. All right, stop getting angry over such people. They can only daydream. If they have the ability, I would definitely. Saying that, Huang Yueli suddenly stopped talking. Her heart leapt as she subconsciously gazed toward the main door, and her eyebrow was slightly creased. You can also listen on. Kai Wei was shocked by her abnormal look and hurriedly questioned, Third Miss, what happened to you? Kai Wei stared at the entrance for a moment, suddenly got up, and walking to the side of the door, she pulled it open. The corridor outside the room was empty. She put her head out to take a look at the surroundings, but didn't see any suspicious figure. Huang Yueli closed the door firmly and walked back to her original seat. Her expression seemed to be lost in thought. Kai Wei was frightened and quickly inquired again. Third Miss, what's the matter with you? Is there really someone outside the door? Huang Yueli shook her head. Nothing, perhaps I'm just too sensitive and had some misperception. However, after the candle flame extinguished, Huang Yueli laid on the bed and another weird feeling appeared, as though she was being spied on. But yet she was unable to pinpoint what was wrong. She had been vigilant and didn't sleep too deeply for the entire night. Until the next morning dawn, nothing had happened. Could it be that it was really my misperception? She shook her head, trying to sway the distracting thoughts away. Early next morning, Huang Yueli led her men onto the route to continue their journey. This time, she could clearly see that Li Shuer's carriage was following right behind them. The distance was not too near nor too far, but no matter how they tried, they could not shake them off. Huang Yueli knew what they had in their minds. She gauged that they were waiting for an opportunity to assassinate her and mug the profound armaments in her possession. Towards this sort of thinking, Huang Yueli only found it amusing and didn't put it on her mind. The more worrying thing was the weird feeling that she encountered last night. Even though she couldn't find the cause, but her many years of past experience told her that there was a problem somewhere. It was noontime when the carriage halted for a rest, and under the shade of a tree, they stopped to groomed, ate, and rest for a little while. Kai Wei distributed the flat bread and ham that she had taken out from her bag. Huang Yueli took a piece as well and was just about to deliver it to her mouth when her heart stopped at this very moment. An indescribable fear arose from her heart. She subconsciously turned around and at the same time took out the powerful thunder flame ball, 3 pieces in total, and threw it behind her back all at the same time. Bam! 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 Shocking crepitation could be heard, and intense flames immediately arose, shooting out into the sky. Amidst the flames, a sword tip suddenly appeared, and with lightning-fast speed, pierced towards Huang Yueli's chest area. This strike was extremely fast, and it was a swift and fierce attack. The strike was wrapped in powerful, profound energy, and the surrounding air quivered by the movements, letting out an ear-splitting sound of breaking the void space. After Huang Yueli threw out the thunder flame balls, the flying daggers followed next immediately, and sword spells were consecutively launched. At the same time, her body was rapidly retreating, and using a touch of her toes, she displayed her footwork as she retreated far away. She had displayed all her methods not to defeat the opponent, but to delay the other party by a few breaths' time, so that she could have the chance to escape. The reason was because at the moment they crossed hands, she could clearly feel that the opponent this round was extremely strong and had already surpassed the boundary, which she could handle. She had no chance of winning. Not only that, the chances of escaping was extremely little. At such a precarious moment, Huang Yueli's inner heart still retained calmness. You can also listen on. As the disparity between their cultivation levels were too huge, no matter how much effort she put into escaping, it was impossible to shake the opponent away. Although Huang Yueli had taken action first, but it could only stop the other party momentarily. Using just this bit of time, there was no way she could run too far a distance away. The disparity between their speed was too large. It would only take a short moment for the other party to chase up to her. Therefore, Huang Yueli's line of sight had fallen onto the few carriages following behind them. She squirmed her eyes and thought secretly, "Who asked you to keep following me, even intending to scheme against me? Since trouble had come knocking on the door, for you to become my scapegoat is something you deserved." Without stopping, She displayed her footworks and rushed towards the direction of Li Shui's carriages. The unforeseen event that Huang Yueli met here was extremely sudden. Li Shui and the rest had seen it happening from afar, but before they could react, in that one instance of lightning and firestone speed, Huang Yueli had already flew charging towards them. It was until she appeared at the front of the carriage before the few of them made screeches of surprise. Huang Yueli directly stepped onto the carriage's roof and jumped ahead, and at the same time, while leaping into the air, she continuously threw out several hidden weapons. The horses leading the carriages were in shock. One of the flying dagger, which Huang Yueli threw out, had stabbed deeply into the horse's back, and as the steed was in pain, it immediately raised its head, neighing nonstop and charged wildly towards the front. The horse leading the carriage charged out directly, totally uncontrollable. Those sitting in the carriage were already scared stiff. Li Shui shouted, "Stop the carriage! Quickly stop the carriage! Why are these horses running around wildly? Why are their speed getting faster and faster? Quickly stop, otherwise the carriage will overturn." The coachman convulsed with fear as he replied in a quavering voice, "Your Highness, est unable to stop. These horses seem to have gone mad, and we're going to smash against something." Bai Ruo Qi was tumbled into confusion. Imperial Tutor immediately stood up from his seat and tried to use profound energy to suppress the horse's movements. But it was all in vain. Just within a few breaths' time, the few carriages were smashing right towards Huang Yueli's killer, Zhuo Fangping. Zhuo Fangping had been concealing himself, and he finally found the best opportunity yesterday. In this desolate area outside the city, no one would notice if a few people had died. The most amazing thing was, as Imperial Tutor and several others were present, he only needed to kill everyone there and made it look like both parties had got into a conflict and ended up in mutual destruction. So even if Li Moying managed to find his way here, he could only accept this conclusion would not suspect him. Zhuo Fangping waited for Huang Yueli to stop and rest, and put his greatest effort into this attack. Originally, he was 100% sure that Huang Yueli would definitely die on the spot, not even able to make a cry for help under that one strike of his. After all, the disparity between 2nd and 5th degree realm was too huge. Moreover, he dealt her with a secret hand and caught her unprepared. However, reality seemed to be topsy-turvy from Zhuo Fangping's imagination. He was just preparing to go near Huang Yueli, and while concealing his presence, prepared himself for an opportunity to attack. But this young lady seemed to have noticed something and opened her eyes abruptly. Zhuo Fangping knew something was amiss and immediately chose to strike first. However, this lass's reaction was faster by 100 times of what he could imagine. It only took a blink of an eye where she had continuously threw out countless profound armaments, especially that powerful thunder flame ball, directly onto his face. You can also listen on. Zhuo Fangping had not expected such a matter to happen. Huang Yueli was already detected his presence even before he struck out. Zhuo Fangping was an extremely rare dark attributed practitioner, so in terms of concealment and assignation, he had an exceptional innate talent. Even same-level practitioners were not able to detect his presence. However, this seemingly weak lass, whom he could crush with just one finger, had actually discovered him. How did she do it? The more ridiculous thing was the profound armaments that this lass threw out were all 5th-grade items. The power concealed in these 5th-grade armament weapons were exceptionally high and were more than enough to cause damage to peak 5th-level practitioners. Luckily, Zhuo Fangping was quick in his response, and after he immediately avoided the place where the thunder flame ball had dropped, otherwise his face could have been ruined. Even so, Zhuo Fangping's arm was grazed by a flying dagger and was bleeding. His face had also been hit by the ashes of the thunder flame ball's explosion and was full of dust, looking especially discomposed. Zhuo Fangping had never expected himself to be hurt by a 2nd-degree realm lass. As one of the direct descendant disciples, not only did he have exceptional cultivation methods, profound skills and treasures were much better than the others. So same-level practitioners were not his match at all. He had never imagined that this time he would be hurt by such a weak lass. Zhuofanping's expression turned ugly, feeling a loss of face. His intent to kill grew stronger and couldn't wait to tear Huang Yueli into two halves at the first moment possible. But Huang Yueli's reaction was simply too fast. At the time when she used the Thunder Flame Ball to force his retreat, she had already flew a great distance away. Zhuofanping rushed out from the black smoke, feeling exasperated while chasing after her. Just as their distance was narrowing, Zhuofanping's eyes flashed a chilly glint. "You wretched lass, no wonder junior sister Moron want you dead so badly. You're not a good thing after all. Too bad. Today will be your death anniversary." Just at this moment, Huang Yueli's silhouette wavered and rushed into Li Shui's carriages. The horses leading the carriages instantly turned mad and ran wildly, carrying the carriage, and collided towards Zhuofanping. The speed of the carriage was simply too fast. The wheels in the carriage sped so fast that dust from the ground made the visibility of the surroundings to become blurry. Zhuofanping's speed was extremely fast too, and by the time he had reached, even though he knew he would crash into them, there was no way to stop at all. Bam! A huge sound reverberated, and Zhuofanping had already collided with the galloping horse carriages. Profound energy was unleashed from Zhuofanping's body and instantly formed a protective bubble, encapsulating his entire body. But he flew several meters away from this impactful crash, and simultaneously a mouthful of blood flushed towards his throat. He forcefully swallowed back that mouthful of blood, but felt that his entire body was filled with pain. Apparently, he had sustained rather severe internal injury. However, with his fifth-degree realm power, this injury would recover in time and would not hinder his actions. On the other end, Li Shui and the rest were not that lucky. Their carriage was originally not any profound armament and was slightly toucher and lavish than usual. Upon the impactful crash against Zhuofanping, half of the horses that were pulling the carriages were dead as the body of the carriage completely split open. As for those sitting in the carriage, they were already tumbled in all directions by the sudden speed of the horses, and at this moment, all of them came rolling down the carriage. You can also listen on. To tumble down from a speeding carriage was an extremely dangerous thing, and even though those on the carriage were not weak practitioners, however, under the circumstances of being caught off guard, they were not able to deploy their profound energy to protect their body, so all of them fell heavily onto the ground. Besides that, as the speed of the carriage was extremely fast, after they fell onto the ground, they were not able to stop and started rolling several rounds far away before they collided with a thick, huge tree trunk. Bam! 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 A few dull sounds echoed as Li Shui by Ruo Qi and Imperial Tutor banged against the tree in succession. Their heads were bleeding from the impact, and as they spotted spinning stars, all of them fainted on the spot. As for their clothes, it had been tattered from the rough ground as they rolled past earlier, and all of them were half naked. In the process of the rolling action, several bones had been broken. As they were all practitioners, although heavily injured, none of them died. However, for the guards which they had brought along, around half of them had died instantly under just one strike from Zhuofanping. As Zhuofanping pressed against the dull pain on his chest, his lips let out a chilly smile. "You dare to obstruct my way. Death is what you deserve. That wretched lass deserves to die even more. How dare you hurt me? When you fall into my hands, I won't let you die that easily. Just you wait." Zhuofanping's sinister laughter could be heard. Li Shui had just regained conscious and was trembling with fright, afraid that she would incur Zhuofanping's wrath. However, Zhuofanping couldn't be bothered with them. In his eyes, they were so insignificant that their life or death didn't matter to him. What mattered the most was that he must quickly complete Murong Fei's orders and kill that resourceful country bumpkin. On both sides of the pathway was a dense forest. At this moment, Huang Yueli had already charged into the forest and still increasing her speed forward into the deep ends of the forest. Zhuofanping secretly hurled out a sentence that's bad. If this wretched lass were to run into the forest, then the variables would change. After all, there were many obstacles in the forest and were advantageous for hiding oneself. Although he was mighty and would still be able to capture Huang Yueli, but in this way, he would have to put in more effort than before. Zhuo Fangping immediately decided, and bearing the internal injury within his chest area, he sped up and started chasing after Huang Yueli. Escape! 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 The only thought that was in Huang Yueli's mind was to escape and quickly run away. Using the collision between Zhuo Fangping and Li Shuer and the rest, she practically used all her energy and ran madly, gaining several thousand meters of distance between them in that instance. But she was very sure of the disparity in cultivation between Zhuo Fangping and herself, so no matter how fast she ran or how many obstacles she created, it might end up in a waste of effort. However, she had no other choice. The only thing she could do now was to take one step at a time. After she had hidden herself in the forest, the leeway for her resistance would become much bigger as hiding spots were now easier to spot, and she could make better use of the profound armaments in her possession. Hearing the screeching and cursing sound from behind, Huang Yueli increased her footsteps. However, the minute Huang Yueli entered the forest, her eyes suddenly turned dark. As thought night had fallen in that instant, she was not able to anything suddenly. The tall trees and all of the surrounding seemed to have disappeared. Besides that, the raucous noises from the surroundings have all disappeared as well and became exceptionally quiet, so quiet that it stirred up a sense of uneasiness in one's heart. The next moment, numerous white, ghostly figures sprouted up from the darkness. A strange smile hung around their ghastly and deadly white faces, floating towards her. You can also listen on. The sound of a breeze could be heard by the ear, and moaning, which could be seemingly heard at times, could send chills right down the listener's spine. As the change of events was too sudden and the scenario was extremely shocking, if it had happened to any ordinary person, his spirit would probably have left his body out of shock. Even if one could maintain composure, but one would probably still be stumped by the sudden change of events. However, Huang Yueli maintained her calm and collected expression, not even showing any sign of distress. At the instant that darkness fell, she had already distinguished that it was not reality that was happening right before her eyes and was likely to be some sort of hallucination. The aim of extending this hallucination was naturally to confuse her and ultimately delaying her escape. Hence, Huang Yueli didn't slow down and continued to head on forward, charging straight towards those horrifying spirits. Just at the moment where her body was about to collide with the spirits, Huang Yueli's wrist moved and took out a long piece of soft whip. Break! That tone was clear and melodious. As though orioles leaving the valley, she drew a lining in the vast horizon. Following her voice, the soft whip thrashed across the front of the spirit. A shrilling shriek was heard as the spirit which was whipped split into two halves. Following that, it seemed to melt and slowly dissipated into the sky. Whip after whip, the spirits in front of her were gradually being smashed to pieces. Just slightly after a few breaths' time, those spirits which had obstructed her way were all eliminated, and the sky slowly turned brighter and brighter, gradually restoring a sunny mid-afternoon weather. Huang Yueli's lips curled upwards slightly, and increasing her speed, she slipped into the forest at top speed. Zhuo Fangping held his chest tight and felt another mouthful of blood surge upwards. This round, he couldn't bear it any further and spurted out a mouthful of blood. The expression on his face was a cross between anger and embarrassment. Damn it! How is this possible? Why was that wretched lass able to break my 1,000 demons illusionary field? Although my cultivation is not enough, but I had managed to train successfully the 1,000 demons illusionary field to a small realm. Even a 6th-degree realm expert would normally fall head first into this technique of mine. Her cultivation is only its 2nd-degree realm, so how could she escape unscathed? It was simply abnormal that this lass was so weird to the extreme, as though her existence was here to put other people down. The Thousand Demons illusionary field was a type of heaven-level lower-grade, profound skill, and its might was extremely powerful. It was a skill which could only be practiced by dark attributed physique practitioners. Using the adjustment of their dark profound energy, they were able to produce a terrifying illusionary scenario to confuse their opponent. If the cultivational disparity was too huge, they would be able to strip their opponent's compos mentis, thereby turning them into their plaything. Logically speaking, the higher one's cultivation was, the stronger one's willpower would be, and the higher the chances of defending against the illusionary scenes of the Thousand Demons illusionary field. For a second-degree realm practitioner like Huang Yueli, it was already an amazing feat that she was not stunned into a vegetable after encountering into this scenario. Once the Thousand Demons illusionary field was utilized, it would require a lot of profound energy, and it was exactly because of this reason why Zhuo Fangping did not dare to use it too often. The only reason why he used this skill was because he was angered by Huang Yueli, and he had prepared to torment her thoroughly after he had controlled her consciousness. Even if it did not work, he would be able to obstruct her way into the forest. However, from the way things had turned out, Zhuo Fangping felt a sense of shock once again. Not only did Huang Yueli not fall into his trap to be confused and become a retard, but on the contrary, her speed of escaping had not decreased any bit. You can also listen on. Before Zhuo Fangping could feel stunned, he had already saw Huang Yueli pulling out her soft whip and smashing fiercely outwards himself. If it had been others, they might perceive Huang Yueli as being pressed to the state of insanity and could only raise her whip in a disorderly manner towards those spirits. But to the originator of the evil Thousand Demons illusionary field skill, Zhuo Fangping could tell from one glance that every single whip that Huang Yueli made was coincidentally on the weakest point of this skill. Although her profound energy was not considered strong, but the accuracy of her attacks had reached 100%. The weakest point of the Thousand Demons illusionary field was being broken by her one after another, and finally, it had completely vanished. As for Zhuo Fangping, as his skill had been broken, he had once again suffered another backlash. In the short quarter of an hour, Zhuo Fangping had struck out consecutively and even utilized one of the skills which he was most complacent about. However, the result was although Huang Yueli was put into a slightly difficult situation, but she had not even lost a strand of hair. Whereas for him, he had been fooled till ashen-faced and had sustained quite a substantial internal injury out of nowhere. Zhuo Fangping was both furious and anxious and could not wait to tear Huang Yueli into pieces. As a fifth-degree realm practitioner, he was also one of the proud figures from a large sect. Would it even make sense if he could not even take down a second-degree realm country lass? More importantly, his mission this time was because of Murong Fei's entrustment. He waited for so long before he finally had a chance to fawn on the goddess of his dreams, and if it was fouled up with neither rhyme or reason, then wouldn't he become a complete piece of trash in Murong's eyes? This was a matter of a man's pride. The more Zhuo Fangping thought, the more anger he felt as he continued chasing after her, flustered and exasperated. But as he had been obstructed by Huang Yueli several times, and due to the backlash that caused a couple of breaths' time, that was more than enough time for Huang Yueli to escape into the forest. By the time Zhuo Fangping had entered the forest, Huang Yueli's figure could no longer be found. Zhuo Fangping sought high and low, but the surrounding shrubs were around a human's height tall and were extremely dense. Looking from afar, one could only see the hovering shades from the trees and not be able to tell clearly if someone was amongst them. As he walked into the forest, he shouted loudly, "Bairuoli, get your ass out here now. Don't think that you've hidden yourself, and I won't be able to find you. I only need to use my soul trace and slowly search every inch of the forest, and sooner or later, I'll be able to whisk you out. If you're to come out by yourself now, I can still let you die a quick death. Otherwise, by the time I find you, you will be in deep SH**T. Zhuo Fangping threatened her, but Huang Yueli was no fool, so of course she wouldn't believe in his bullsh**T. The only reply he got was the breeze gently rustling the leaves. Zhuo Fangping squinted his eyes slightly as a sense of urgency shot up in his heart. That wretched lass, could she had really slipped away? No, it was impossible. She had just ran into this forest, and it was just 10 over breath's time earlier than him. No matter how far she ran, there was no way she could escape a huge distance away. At most, she would still be in the vicinity of around 2 kilometers. What's more, this should be the first time that wretched lass had passed by this place, and this was not South Yu Kingdom, so she couldn't have set up any hidden traps in the forest, so she couldn't possibly have disappeared in a thin air. Thinking of that, Zhuo Fangping set his heart at least and started to gather his qi and with rapt attention, used his soul trace to search the surrounding environment. Innate talents for cultivation and concentration levels differs among practitioners, and that in turn would affect the boundary of their soul trace. You can also listen on. As a 5th degree realm practitioner, Zhuo Fangping was at least able to sense the situation around him, but in order to conduct a detailed search, he would need to waste a lot of energy and time, which would multiply many times over. Zhuo Fangping had originally intended to use the scare tactic to save some energy, but Huang Yueli didn't fall for it, so he could only do the search slowly. But he believed that he would be able to whisk that lass out sooner or later. At this very moment, Huang Yueli was hiding behind a huge tree trunk. Her back leaned against the trunk, and without a single movement, her eyes were shut, and her breathing seemed to come to a halt as her body started to turn icy cold, as though she was gradually losing signs of life. In reality, the scenario that Zhuo Fangping thought was actually correct. Huang Yueli knew clearly that if things were to go on like this, she would eventually be caught. Moreover, she cannot run, because if she did, Zhuo Fangping would be able to location her position immediately, and as long as the direction was correct, in terms of speed, she would definitely not be able to outrun him. That was why Huang Yueli only chose to conceal herself, so that Zhuo Fangping had no way to seek her. But this was equally difficult, as the soul trace of a 5th degree realm practitioner was very powerful. Unless one's cultivation level was higher than the opponent, otherwise there was no way that one would be able to conceal one's presence under the opponent's fully powered search. Just as Huang Yueli was deliberating, suddenly she recalled that she had read a cultivation method in her previous life. This cultivation method was found during an expedition in an ancient mystic region in her previous life, also known as Kelonian breathing skill. Practitioners who practice this Kelonian breathing skill are able to adjust the direction of the profound energy in their body to simulate a fake death scenario. Under any situation, if one was able to conceal their presence, then the enemy would never be able to locate them. This cultivation method was extremely functional, and the results were shocking. If one could practice it to the highest level, even if it was a 1st degree realm practitioner, they would be able to successfully conceal their presence under the eyelids of 9th degree realm experts. However, in order to successfully practice the Kelonian breathing skill, one would need at least a 5th grade talent in Earth attribute. In her previous life, Huang Yueli had not been equipped with this talent, hence, after she obtained the cultivation scroll for the Kelonian breathing skill, she had never once practiced it. However, she was different in this current life. As a complete attribute 9th grade genius, Huang Yueli felt that she should be able to acquire this cultivation method. The only fraudulent situation at hand was that she had never practiced this cultivation method before, so she had no prior experience. Now that she had to clasp Buddha's feet when danger arose, would it even be possible to learn this skill successfully within a couple of breaths' time? If this was told to others, they would surely laugh their heads off. Such lunatic ravings weren't even heard of. We're retarded. But since things have come to such a stand, she had no other choice. So even if it was a dead horse, she would have to treat it like a living horse to treat. Huang Yueli made a prompt decision and searched her memories for that Kelonian breathing skill. Luckily, her memory had always been ridiculously strong, and even after so many years, she would be able to recall every single cultivation method that she had read through. She hastily forced herself to calm down and ignore the changes that were happening on the external world, blocking out Zhuo Fangping's blustering. The only thing she cared about now was the cultivation method. In a blink of an eye, she had already entered the mode of cultivation, silently absorbing earth attributes elements from the surroundings. Her profound energy flowed into her limbs and skeleton according to the guidelines from Kelonian breathing skill. Even she had not expected that things would be so successful. She didn't seem to expend much effort while practicing this cultivation method. You can also listen on. Even Huang Yueli herself could not believe the current situation totally. Even though this cultivation method was a heaven-level, mid-level skill, but if it was left in the entire soaring heavens continent, this was considered as one of the best cultivation methods. It was extremely difficult to successfully practice this high-level cultivation method, and if one were to be able to get the gist of it slightly within 1 to 2 years, that person would be considered as a genius. Huang Yueli had initially not held any hopes and purely didn't want to sit and wait for death, so she made a final deathbed struggle. In actual fact, she had already made preparations to be discovered under her failure to acquire this skill. However, she had never dreamt that she just simply practiced according to the instructions given, to let her profound energy tour all her meridians an entire round, and she realized that she had already attained the basic realm of the cultivation method. Wasn't this a little bit too fast? If this had not happened on her own self and was told by someone else, she would definitely not believe it. Could it be that the flame spirit physique was really that abnormal? Not only the process of practicing fire-attributed cultivation methods produced shocking results, but it was also super smooth while practicing any cultivation methods. Huang Yueli could not interpret this situation, but at this moment, she could not afford to be distracted. She devoted herself entirely to the operation of the cultivation method, and her presence gradually became weaker and weaker by the second. Not long later, she stopped moving completed as though she had become one with the tree. Zhuo Fangping was still walking to and fro in the quiet forest. He had utilized all his concentration and used his soul trace to check the surroundings again and again, but he was unable to detect any living person's presence in the forest. Zhuo Fangping didn't believe it and purposely walked round in circles to widen the boundary. The boundary of his soul trace had reached a total of 3 kilometers. 3 kilometers was already an unreachable boundary, which Huang Yueli should not be able to reach based on her speed. But even so, he was still unable to find her. Zhuo Fangping's eyes turned red from anxiety as he clenched his teeth. His expression had turned incomparably sinister. "You little slut, where on earth have you died to? Have you really dug a hole and buried yourself? How is that possible? She obviously was not able to run that far away, so I'm sure she had hidden herself. Where on earth had she hidden herself?" Zhuo Fangping paced back and forth as he felt frustrated and gloomy. He raised his head and shouted into the serene forest once again, "Bairu Oli, get the hell out. If you don't come out, I'm going to set fire to the entire forest." Surely you won't want to die under the flames in the forest, right? Do you know how terrifying it is to be burned to death? The flames will slowly burn every inch of your skin, and you will also breath in the smoke and ashes. Then your vocal cords be muted, such that you won't even be able to call out for help, and finally, you can only roll around in pain from being burnt alive. Zhuo Fangping had depicted the scenario to be extremely disgusting, in bid to scare Huang Yueli out. From his view, this kind of death was the most disgusting way to die. Even those tenacious top exponents were not able to bear with this torment. In that case, a lass like Huang Yueli would definitely be scared out of her wits. Unfortunately, even after he had depicted such a disgusting scenario, there were still no movements in the forest. Zhuo Fangping gritted his teeth and yelled, "Not coming out, is it? I'll give you one more chance. I'll count backward from 10. When I'm done, if you still don't appear in front of me, then you can just wait to become a piece of roasted meat." You can also listen on. Zhuo Fangping's hysterical threats had reverberated through the forest and clearly passed on to Huang Yueli's ears. Although she was in a state of fake death, But that did not mean that she was oblivious to the surrounding changes. On the contrary, although she looked exactly like a dead person, but her soul trace was extremely clear and her five senses were abnormally sensitive towards what was happening in the outside world. She was even clearer than usual. Zupfongping's threats had indeed sounded horrifying, and if it had been any other ladies, they would probably have been scared out of their wits. No matter which practitioner, if they were to meet their demise while training, no one would want to be burnt into a piece of tender roasted meat, right? This way of dying was just too disgusting and a tad too frightening. Besides that, Huang Yuli also believed that Zhuofangping was capable of doing that. In a high-level practitioner's eyes, low-level practitioners and normal humans' lives were not lives. It was no different from any beasts. In a place like Soaring Heaven's continent, where might was highly valued, there were quite a number of people who still believed in this view. However, Huang Yuli was one who wasn't afraid of those type of people. Because of her flame spirit physique, she don't believe that any flames would be able to hurt her in any way. Even if it was the number one deviant flame, true phoenix fire, hadn't it be easily refined by her? As for other ordinary flames, even if it could start a prairie fire and burn her body, but it would not be able to hurt her one bit. So if Zhuofangping really intended to set fire on her, then it would be a good thing. Because once the fire was started, the scenario would definitely be in a huge mess. Once a forest fire lit up, it would be extremely hard to extinguish it. By then, Zhuofangping would definitely assume that she's dead and would not need to make too much verification, and all she had to do was to wait for Zhuofangping to leave before she could quietly leave the scene of fire. To Huang Yuli, this was simply the best way to escape from this scenario. So Huang Yuli had been secretly mumbling to herself, quickly burn, you better quickly set fire." If Zhuofangping was able to hear her inner thoughts, he would probably be driven mad on the spot. The threat that he had thought to be extremely horrifying and abnormal was actually able to help Huang Yuli. Moreover, she had been praying non-stop that he could quickly use such a sinister method on her. What was the problem here? To torture one person was naturally to make her afraid, then only would the tormentor feel good. But the other party was not afraid and was excitedly hoping for it. Then there would be no meaning at all. Huang Yuli operated the cultivation method, and, at the same time, she looked forward to Zhuofangping setting fire. However, not knowing if Zhuofangping had found his consciousness or what, he finally did not set fire. Huang Yuli waited for a long time, but there was no signs of movement, so she gauged that he had probably given up the decision to set fire in the forest and couldn't help but feel disappointed. At the same time, she started to be on her guard. Zhuofangping would probably not give up at this moment in time, but if he chose not to set fire, then it would mean that he must have found another sure-win way to force her to appear. In this, what method would it be? Huang Yuli waited and waited until she almost lost her patience. From the outside of the woods reverberated a sharp shriek. Who are you? What are you intending to do?" "Well, let me go. Help." "Bo-hoo-hoo." That voice sounded like it was filled with shivering and choking and sounded slightly familiar. Huang Yuli was stunned for a moment and realized that this was her cousin Bairuo Qi's voice. You can also listen on. Immediately following that, Zhuofangping's voice could be heard again. "Shut up, stupid girl. If you continue crying, I'll stab you to death. And oh, don't kill me, don't kill me." Bairuo Qi kept begging for mercy as she sat paralyzed on the ground, holding tightly onto Zhuofangping's thigh as she begged. I won't cry. Sir, whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. Please don't kill me." Zhuofangping kicked her aside, scrammed further aside. "Let me ask you, that Bairuoli, is she your cousin? Related by blood?" Bairuo Qi knew this was an exponent who would claim her life just by a raise of his hand and shivered with fright. Not daring to hide anything, she hurriedly answered once Zhuofangping raised his question. Right, it's exactly as you said. Bairuoli's father is my father's blood brother. It's absolutely true. But since I was young," Bairuo Qi wanted to mention that since young, she had been on loggerheads with his third cousin, and both of them were not on the same path. so rather than saying that they were relatives, it would be more apt to say that they are enemies and had completely shed all pretense of cordiality. So when Zhuo wanted to create trouble for Huang Yueli, it really wouldn't implicate her, because she held the same wishes that Huang Yueli would quickly die. However, Zhuo had no patience to listen to her, and after he had gotten the answers he wanted, he dragged Bai Ruoqi aside. Enough! I know already. Bai Ruoqi wished to speak, but did not do so on second thought after she caught Zhuo murderous stare, not daring to open her mouth at all. Zhuo dragged Bai Ruoqi into the forest and shouted loudly towards the inner part. Bai Ruoqi, come out now. If you don't, I will kill your cousin. Moreover, I will also cut off her fingers individually and let you hear her painful, anguished wailing. You better consider carefully. Bai Ruoqi was terrified till she almost fainted. It was obviously that little slut who lured the enemy, so even if she died, she deserved it. Why? Why did it implicate her? The forest was still in a state of silence. So Fangping frowned and reiterated again. Bai Ruoqi, have you considered clearly? This is your blood-related cousin, considered to be your blood skin. Are you going to let her, in your face, be tortured alive until she dies? Can you get past your conscience? Don't tell me you will not be pricked by your conscience and have a nightmare tonight. There were still no movements in the forest. Zhuo was afraid that Huang Yueli could not hear him, hence he repeated himself once again. However, not only did Huang Yueli heard it, but when she heard, she found it especially amusing. This Zhuo was here to harm her or to help her. If he really slowly tortured Bai Ruoqi to death slowly, not only will Huang Yueli not feel sorrowful, instead she will feel ecstatic. Trying to use such a scheme to force her to show herself, it would only have the opposite effect, okay? As for Bai Ruoqi, please feel free to slowly torture her and don't stand on ceremony. After you're done with the torture, please scram as soon as possible. Zhuo didn't get any response, and his eyebrows creased as he secretly felt a shock in his heart. This lass, although she was very young, but her psychological quality was pretty good. He had already dragged her cousin here, and yet there was no activity from her at all. Actually, Zhuo had not expected Huang Yueli to listen to his threats and just run out in stupor. But when most people had their blood relatives captured, they would not be completely silent. You can also listen on. No matter how calm one may look, there would be that one instance that their bodies would become stiff and slight changes would occur to the frequency of their breathing. What Zhuo was hoping for was that instance of abnormality. As long as Huang Yueli had that one little bit of being disturbed, she would easily display some loopholes, and he would be able to use that to ascertain a rough estimate of her hiding place. Once he was able to locate her, then capturing her would not be a big issue. However, reality had disappointed Zhuo. There was no slight change in breathing frequency in Huang Yueli, as though his capturing of Bai Ruoqi had no effect or response from her. Wretched lass, stop pretending. She is your blood cousin. I heard that you were raised by your uncle. How could you be so heartless to your cousin? All right, your heart is made of steel, isn't it? Then I won't stand on ceremony. Saying that, Zhuo raised Bai Ruoqi with one hand and held tightly onto her slender hand, as though he was gently caressing her. TSK, this cousin of yours looks not bad at all, youthful and smooth skin, and this pair of hands are especially beautiful. If I were to slash off her fingers one by one, this scenario, what would it be like? Bai Ruoqi's soul had flown out of her body, and her expression was even paler than a dead person as she trembled like a leaf and almost wet her pants on the spot. Zhuo pressed her hand on the ground and raised his sword with his right hand, about to slash downwards. Bai Ruoqi shrieked, "No, please, don't cut my finger. Even if you were to slash me into 100 pieces, it would be useless. Although this slut and I are cousins, but we are more like enemies and she can't wait for me to die. If you killed me, she would be ecstatic. She won't show herself at all." She knew, if she didn't say anything at this time, she would definitely die, so she couldn't care less and started screaming. Sure enough, after hearing what she said, Zhuofanping's movement paused. Bai Ruoqi's heart soared with joy as she felt that her words had taken effect. She hastily added, "It's true, I've been bullied by that slut daily, and I've bore hatred against her for the longest time, and I want her life as well. Since you're also Bai Ruoli's enemy, that makes our target the same, so we are on the same side. Sir, please let me off, and I'll help you find that slut." Zhuofanping stared at her for a moment, trying to gauge if what she had said was true. Bai Ruoqi displayed an earnest expression towards Zhuofanping and said, "Sir, I swear that all I had said are the truth." Zhuofanping replied sinisterly, "Oh, really? Then what proof can you show that you're telling the truth?" Bai Ruoqi was stumped, "Huh? Proof?" On seeing Zhuofanping's fallen expression, she hastily replied, Right. You want proof? I have proof. That is, those people with me on the carriage, they all know me and Bai Ruoli, and know that we have an enmity. If you were to ask, then you can find out for sure." Zhuofanping faced an icy smile. "That's wasting too much time. Besides, they're all in cahoots with you. Who knows if you gang up to lie to me?" "Boo." But Bai Ruoqi wanted to add on more, but was stopped by Zhuofanping. "To find out if what you're saying is the truth or not, it's very simple." Saying that, he pressed down Bai Ruoqi's hand, and without any hesitation, the long sword on the other hand had already swerved downwards. Blood spurted out. You can also listen on. Bai Ruoqi let out a shrilling shriek as her little finger on her left hand was cut off. Filled with blood stains, she fell onto the grass. Pain filled her entire face as it contorted with pain, wishing that she could start rolling around on the grass patch. However, Zhuofanping gripped her hand tightly, so no matter how Bai Ruoqi struggled, she couldn't get away from him. Beads of perspiration which had formed on her forehead started to slide down from her face. She had never suffered such pain in her lifetime, and yet, now a part of her body was cut off from her while she was still alive. Furthermore, this mysterious exponent was extremely fast and ruthless without any hesitation. He was simply too scary. Zhuofanping couldn't be bothered to even cast her a glance, but simply continued shouting towards the direction of the forest. "Bai Ruoli, did you hear that? Your cousin's one finger is gone. TSK, such a beautiful hand, and it's not broken. Such a waste. Even I also feel some sympathy." His tone was deep and low as he laughed chillingly. Huang Yueli had heard it, but she didn't show any expression, just laughing inside her heart. What she liked most was this kind of self-professed genius, right? This was known as dog bite, dog, double-crossing each other, and all these were what they were willing to do. Wasn't that just too amusing? Zhuofanping didn't get the response that he had expected, and his expression instantly grew gloomier by the second. He raised his long sword, and under the terrified face of the shocked Bai Ruoqi, he struck down hard again. "Dunti!" Bai Ruoqi gave another shrilling shriek, incomparably mournful, shocking a little birds which had perched on the tree branches started to fly away in all directions. However, Huang Yueli still did not give any response. Zhuofanping turned around and yelled again, "Bai Ruoli, this is already the second finger. If you still don't come out, all of your sister's 10 fingers will be gone. In future, I'm afraid she will have to use her leg to have her meals." Use her leg to have her meals. Just thinking about this scenario almost made Bai Ruoqi faint. However, Zhuofanping continued to grip her hand tightly. That continuously rising pain was just too distinct, so much that she could not even faint if she wanted to. The forest was still in a state of inactivity. Zhuofanping shut his eyelids as his face was downcast, his lips pursed tightly, not making any sound. Bai Ruoqi was so frightened that her heart almost stopped, as though days were like years. Zhuofanping had already said his sharpest words, but he hadn't taken any action. This period of waiting was in fact the most torturous to anyone's mind because the horrifying scenario that she had imagined could happen at the next moment, whereas she was totally unable to handle it. Just thinking about it was able to make her die from fright. Zhuofanping went into deep thoughts for a moment, and suddenly let go of Bai Ruoqi's hand. Bai Ruoqi could not react in time as her hand still maintained the same position on the ground, not knowing if she should retract it. She dumbfoundedly stared at Zhuo Fangping. Sir, PL, please spare my life. Zhuo Fangping replied icily. Bai Ruoli really doesn't give a hoot about you. Looks like what you said earlier was the truth. Yes, it's the truth. Whatever I had said are all the truth. It was until this moment that Bai Ruoqi finally realized that Zhuo Fangping had been so heavy-handed just because he was authenticating if she and Bai Ruoli were really enemies. Bai Ruoqi had never expected that this top exponent in front of her would be so sinister. In order to authenticate the truth, he took 2 of her fingers away. Bai Ruoqi felt indignant and uncomfortable, but she did not dare to grumble even a single word. You can also listen on. Zhuo Fangping continued to speak. Since you and Bai Ruoli are indeed not on the same path, then I'm not an unreasonable person. Your remaining fingers, I don't want it anymore. Why? Yes. Bai Ruoqi's hatred was filled to the brim, but her expression actually showed a blandish expression as she spoke, quivering. Many thanks, sir. I'm grateful to you for sparing me. Huang Yueli almost laughed out when she heard that. She was undoubtedly an innocent bystander captured and had suffered the loss of 2 fingers, but not only did Bai Ruoqi not show her rage, but she even meekly thanked the person who hurt her. There was no greater grievance than this. Grateful? Grateful to that killer for what? Grateful to him for cutting off her fingers? Or grateful to him for treating her like a dog? Thinking about Bai Ruoqi's usual arrogant and despotic attitude, bullying the weak and fearing the strong was used to describe the kind of people like her. In Bai Ruoqi's heart, she had indeed felt grieved to the extreme, but she was no fool knew that since she was already now at the life and death crisis, bearing with this and preserving her life was the most important thing to do. At this moment, she would not hesitate if she had to say or do anything. Zhuo Fangping heard what she said, and the corners of his lips curled upwards slightly. Bai Ruoqi's heart flew in joy, thinking that she might possibly be saved. Now that this merciless demon already knew that she and Huang Yueli were not buddies and had not intended to continue cutting off her fingers, then he would probably not want her life as well. In order to please Zhuo Fangping, Bai Ruoqi added, Sir, I can help to find Bai Ruoli together with you. Although my power is lowly and I'm not on the same level as you, but one more person means one more strength. I can help you. Zhuo Fangping casted her a glance, and in his eyes, a cold and strange intent flashed by his eyes. Bai Ruoqi's heart shivered, suddenly feeling that things didn't seem so right after all. Just at this moment, Zhuo Fangping suddenly grabbed her collar and lifted her up. Lifted in this manner, the material of her clothes near the collar was restrained deeply onto her neck, causing her to almost suffocate. Bai Ruoqi struggled, but no matter how she tried, she could not set herself free. Her face gradually turned green as she stammered. Sir, haven't we already cleared the misunderstanding? Please let me go. I am willing to help. Zhuo Fangping gave a chilly laugh. Since you've already said that, then why are you still struggling? In fact now, only you can help me. Bai Ruoqi hurriedly answered. Yes, I help. Before she could complete her sentence, she suddenly felt a chill near her bosom area. Bai Ruoqi had not realized what had happened, and it was until she saw her clothes at her bosom area seeped with blood before she realized that this sinister man had used his sword to slash open her chest. You, Bai Ruoqi's voice quivered. Zhuo Fangping didn't pay any attention to her, and presumptuously he took out a talisman from his chest area and shook it in mid-air. The array pattern on the talisman shone slightly, and following that, the talisman stopped in mid-air as the array pattern started to be activated, shimmering with strange rays. Bai Ruoqi was covered in sweat, but she was unable to move an inch. She could clearly feel that her blood kept pouring out, and this blood were gradually consolidating towards the talisman. The talisman absorbed her blood and slowly congealed. The array pattern on the talisman slowly became darker and darker. until finally it turned into a striking blood-red color. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli hid behind the tree, and although her breath was restrained to the slightest degree, she was still able to clearly hear the surrounding sounds. Bai Ruoqi and Zhuo Fangping's conversation naturally would not escape her ears. Following that, after Bai Ruoqi moaned a few times and her qi turned thin like gossamer, there was no more sound. Isn't that just too strange? Instinct told Huang Yueli that the person who was after her should have thought of another new method. And the more terrifying part was because it's not any ordinary method. In her heart, a sudden crisis filled her heart. Just at this moment, a bloody stench filled the air all the way till her corner. When Huang Yueli smelled this blood stench, the alarms in her heart started ringing nonstop, and she suddenly recalled something that made her heart thump wildly. Alas, it was all too late. Zhuo Fangping held the talisman in his hand, and looking at the blood imprint that had formed a bond with the talisman, his lips curled into a sinister smile. Whereas by his feet, Bai Ruoqi had already entered a state of shock due to excessive blood loss as the whites of her eyeballs flipped over and she lay paralyzed on the ground, losing all consciousness. The talisman in his hand was something that he had obtained many years ago in a mystic region which he was training in, and was extremely valuable. The blood smell talisman was a god relic used as a tracking device. No matter how high the practitioner's cultivation was, they were unable to conceal their presence in front of the powerful blood smelt talisman. The only thing was, in order to use this talisman, the limiting conditions were pretty large as well. On one hand, it needed at least a 5th-degree realm cultivator, and on the other hand, it required a special primer to activate it. That was the blood from a kin. Moreover, it required a huge amount of blood, almost to the extent of drawing out the entire body's blood. When Zhuo Fangping captured Bai Ruoqi, he had already prepared 2 plans. If Huang Yueli were to worry about Bai Ruoqi being tortured and automatically show up, that would be the best option. However, if she was not going to give in, then he still had another method, and that was to activate this precious blood smelt talisman. Under the power of this talisman, how would a 2nd-degree realm practitioner like her possibly have the ability to hide? Once the blood imprint of the talisman had been set into shape, the clear blood red was especially striking to one's eye. Zhuo Fangping felt a heartache as he looked at the blood imprint on the talisman. The people who could refine this blood smell talisman were extremely little, and with every single use, there would be one lesser. To use this on a 2nd-degree realm trash was a waste. However, in order to show off himself in front of Murong Fei, he was ready to give his best. Zhuo Fangping threw out a talisman seal and pointed towards the sky. The talisman started to move in the windless sky and drifted outwards. Zhuo Fangping's eyes shone as his lips curled up into a frosty smile. Bai Ruoqi, you little slut, aren't you really good at hiding? Aren't you very capable? Now, aren't you going to show your true self? I'd like to see where you're going to hide this round. How many tricks do you have up your sleeves, and are you going to make your escape? Huang Yueli gritted her teeth as she hid behind the tree. Her mind was speedily thinking of ways to counterattack. She felt that she was really unlucky. Who had expected that she had almost fooled Zhuo Fangping, and yet he had to bring out a thing like the blood smell talisman. Both Bai Ruoqi and her are real cousins, and their blood bond were not something that any cultivation method could conceal or diminish. Because of that, with this blood smell talisman, her whereabouts would definitely be exposed. You can also listen on. Once her whereabouts were exposed, even if Huang Yueli wanted to escape, it would become something unrealistic. Run, her speed was not enough. Hide, she had already been exposed. And if she were to fight, she was definitely not Zhuo Fangping's match. No matter how highly intelligent Huang Yueli was, at this moment, she could not think of any way to escape. It just took several moments before the blood smelt talisman floated to a distance no further than 10 meters near Huang Yueli, and suddenly it stopped. Huang Yueli knew she could not hesitate any further. It was unavoidable to be exposed, and what she could do, or only do, was the last struggle before death. No matter what, she could not let the opponent capture her easily. She suddenly stretched out her hand, and in return, started sucking all the profound energy frantically. Profound energy was being absorbed back in her body, and that blood smell talisman was also sucked over. Her fingers pinched the talisman, and trembling slightly, she tore the talisman to pieces. The blood floating in the middle of the air had yet to disperse as it turned into a puddle of blood and totally absorbed into her body. Following her action, Ping let out a oof moan. The talisman technique that he used to control the talisman was broken by Huang Yueli, and almost instantly, he suffered yet another backlash. The internal injury within his body took another serious turn. After Huang Yueli absorbed the bloody mist, she felt a scorching warm sensation scourging through every single one of her meridians, and as a divine light appeared in front of her. In that instant, her cultivation was raised to third-degree spirit, profound realm instantly. However, Huang Yueli knew clearly that this was just a temporary condition. It was because of the blood from the same lineage had been absorbed into her body and temporarily spiked the potential within her. As her elder cousin, Bairuo Qi was at least of some use to her. However, since this condition only temporarily raised her battle power and not a real advancement, so it would not last for too long. Huang Yueli was unable to continue hiding, and gradually her silhouette showed up in the mist. Ping was just suffering a backlash at the moment that she had appeared. She jinked and used her most powerful, profound skill. With both hands outstretched, true phoenix fire and amethyst thunder flame lit from her palms at the same time and detonated in the wind. The two types of flames intersected each other and let out an acute, exploding sound. Thunder and fire occurred simultaneously, causing everything within 2 kilometers of the forest surroundings to completely explode into level ground. Even Ping had not expected this and was caught in the explosion. At the same time, Huang Yueli did not dare to hide her inadequacy by remaining silent. Instead, she gave all she had got and took out all her attack series profound armaments. Even Little Phoenix and Little Vulture were released, aiding her in attacking Ping. Initially, Ping was set back, but very quickly he reacted and instantly counterattacked. Wretched lass, where did you learn such profound skills from? Your power isn't too bad at all. However, you're just a second-degree realm practitioner, so even if the heaven-level upper-quality profound skill falls into your hands, don't even think about being able to bring into play a high percentage of power. And don't even think that you can defeat me. Although he cut a sorry figure and had sustained several wounds, but when Huang Yueli noticed that his 4 limbs were still complete as he rushed out from the blazes, her heart had already turned cold. The distance between second-degree realm and fifth-degree realm was still too huge. Even if she had used all her might in that one strike and had already reached the outstanding power of a fourth-degree realm peak, in the eyes of any powerhouse, she was still an unimaginable, peerless genius. Alas, it was still not enough. Was she really going to fall head first this time? She finally had a chance to reincarnate into this lifetime, so the things that she wanted to do had not yet been completed. She had not even managed to see Mu Chengying, and she was going to die in such a manner in the hands of a sinister villain. You can also listen on. The glow in the forest grew larger as sounds of an intense battle fell incessantly on the ear. Imperial Tutor and Li Shui'er had awoken from their concussion and were struggling to get up. They had a distance away but did not dare to run too far off. Bairuo Qi had been taken away by that grim hitman, and although they all saw this, but they didn't dare to stop him. The reason was because even if they stopped him, it would be useless as that man was just too strong. In front of Ping, they only had that little bit of power which just wasn't enough, so if they were to confront him, it would only be sending themselves to their own deaths. In the face of danger, Imperial Tutor and Li Shui'er had agreed by chance and choose to out their own safety before principles. Both of them kept their eyes shut, pretending to still be in comatose, thereby allowing Bairuo Qi to be taken away. Following that, Bairuo Qi's blood-curdling screech came reverberating from the forest. They were absolutely horrified by her screams, and in their hearts, a sense of guilt arose. They wondered what did that cruel expert did to Bairuoqi. This, if she were to die, what should they do? Because of this, they didn't walk too far away, but had hidden themselves and gazed afar, thinking that if Bairuoqi had died, they could retrieve her body when the killer had left. At least they would be able to give an answer to the people at the valiant Marshall Manor. Yet, after the waves of screeches, the forest returned to its usual tranquility. Just as both of them exchanged strange glances, suddenly sounds of battle started to fill the forest. Furthermore, from the occasional reproving noise that the young lady made, the person whom Zhuo Fangping crossed hands with seemed to be Huang Yueli. The two of them heard a loud explosion and saw smoke sprouting from the forest as it filled the entire sky with red flames. They exchanged glances involuntarily, and from each other's eyes, they could spot an incomparable, shocking expression. That couldn't be. Bairuoli fighting with that expert, right? No, surely it can't be. I also feel that it's impossible. She's just in second-degree realm. But besides her, who else is there in this forest? But it's not possible. How can this be possible? With that little bit of cultivation, how can she possibly cross hands with a fifth-degree realm practitioner? Surely, if he unleashed a little bit of profound energy, he should be able to shock her to death, right? Yes, this is just too abnormal. The more both of them thought, the more weirder it became and the more terrified they got. Especially when they recalled the provocations that they had thrown onto Huang Yueli during the entire journey. There was always a lingering fear in their hearts. Luckily, they didn't really got into a brawl. Otherwise, perhaps even Imperial Tutor was not her match. After a while longer, the battle sounds in the forest started to die down. Li Shui'er stared blankly at the direction of the forest and spoke out. This is the end? Who won? Imperial Tutor's brows creased as he retorted. Do you even need to ask? The killer must have won. No matter how powerful Bairuoli is, could she possibly win a fifth-degree realm expert? This round, Imperial Tutor's guess wasn't wrong. The disparity between fifth-degree realm and second-degree realm was simply too large. Even though Huang Yueli had integrated Bairuoqi's blood essence and temporarily broken through to third-degree realm, and the profound skills and cultivation methods came out one after another, but her profound energy was not as much as Zhuo Fangping. Even though both of them were unable to gain an upper hand and had tussled for quite a while, but not long after, Huang Yueli could feel the profound energy in her body was like river water flowing out from the gates, gushing out rapidly to a loss. It didn't take much time before she felt her physical strength was unable to hold on much longer as she fell into a disadvantageous position. You can also listen on. As time passed, Huang Yueli's profound energy was finally exhausted completely. She had no other choice but to jump out, and raising both her hands, she said, All right, I surrender. I've admitted defeat, okay? When Zhuo Fangping heard her admitting her defeat, the chilly smile hanging on his lips became even more obvious. Wretched lass, now do you know how powerful I am? Why didn't you surrender earlier? Or beg for mercy? Now you're showing this tricks. Don't tell me you're trying to delay for more time. But no matter how you try to delay, no one will come and save you. Today, you're a goner. Huang Yueli's mouth twitched as she thought to herself that this killer had some brains instead of all brawn, and could tell what her motive was. She had automatically begged for mercy, not because she was naive and thought that he would let her off because she begged. She just didn't want to be struck dead in the intense battle upon one strike or her meridians severed. If that was the case, then there would be no way of going back. There wasn't any life-threatening injury on her now, so no matter what, while there's life, there's hope. Perhaps she would be able to socialize around with Zhuo Fangping and dupe him. However, Zhuo Fangping was no fool as he saw through her scheme. He gave a cold laugh. If you had not tried to escape from the start, perhaps I can let you have a quick death and not suffer. But you had tried time and again to cause hurt to me, and you even made me lose such a priceless blood-smelt talisman. These cannot be forgotten easily. If I don't torment you till you're half dead, my surname is not Ping almost spoke out his revered name, and luckily he reacted at the last moment and immediately shut his mouth. Huang Yueli originally pricked her ears to listen, but upon seeing him stop, a sense of disappointment came over her. Ping was filled with embitterment and gloominess. His task today had not been smooth at all, even considered to be a total mess. He had actually suffered such a heavy injury while chasing after a second-degree rel practitioner. This was simply unimaginable. What was worse was the sex derby was about to start, and he was initially prepared to show off his skills at the derby, but now that he had suffered an internal injury, by then he probably would have yet to recover from it. This was simply ruining his own future. Not to mention, the blood smell talisman that he had wasted was ridiculously expensive. He had counted all of these debts onto Huang Yueli's head count and had decided to torture her viciously, making her wish that she was better off dead than alive. However, even though Ping was despondent, Huang Yueli was in fact even more despondent than him. It was because the blood smell talisman that Ping had used to determine her whereabouts was actually refined by her in her past life. In actuality, the number of blood smell talisman in the entire Soaring Heavens continent were actually refined by Huang Yueli 20 over years ago. Because of this, no one was clearer than her on the structure and usage of these talisman. This was why she was able to break the blood patterns on the talisman in a blink of an eye and also successfully absorb the blood essence and energy from the talisman. This type of talisman was invented solely by her. There was none other in Soaring Heavens continent. That year, Mu Chengying was seeking to kill an enemy who excelled at concealment, which was why she helped him to refine this. She refined 30 pieces at one go. Mu Chengying took only 10 pieces and the remaining 20 pieces. Either she sold it off at an auction or she gifted it to friends to return favor. Never would she have thought that the blood smell talisman that she had casually refined years ago would now appear right before her again in such a manner. You can also listen on. Besides that, because of the fact that she had refined it way too successfully, the might of these talisman were very high, and to eradicate the concealment mode was extremely strong, which resulted in her falling head first into this talisman. This was simply a hole which she had dug for herself. Huang Yueli had unspeakable embitterment and gloominess, wishing that she could knock herself dead on the tree trunk. Ping saw her unpredictable expression and had thought that she was afraid, which made him feel delightful. Why? Now you know what is to be afraid. If you were to crouch on the ground and use your tongue to lick my shoes, I can... He opened his mouth with elation, but before he could finish talking, Huang Yueli interrupted his speech. Since I'm going to die soon, can't you let me be an unequivocal ghost? Who wants me dead? Ping was shocked, as he had never expected her to ask this question. But following that, he showed a smile of ridicule. Why? You want to know who wants you dead? Too bad. I'm never going to tell you. You've offended someone whom you shouldn't even have the chance to offend. After you die, think carefully when you've gone down to Hades. Huang Yueli twitched her lips and said, even if you don't tell, I also know. You're Li Moying's foe? When Ping heard Li Moying's name, his eyes turned wide and the expression on his face turned even more malevolent. Li Moying was a name that he really didn't want to hear, because in his inner heart, he was the man who he was most jealous and had the most hatred for. Because such a peerless talent like Li Moying could not be compared to any other talents at all. Before Li Moying had joined the sect, Ping was also one of the many talents in the sect and had obtained the sect master and elders all-out grooming. But all these changed the minute Li Moying came to the sect. In front of that matchless and peerless genius, all others had completely became a prop. No, perhaps it could be said that they were not even fit to be considered as a prop, because the disparity was simply too large. Not only that, the thing that made Ping most jealous was even the goddess in his heart, Morong Fei, only liked him. If you were to ask who Ping hated the most in his entire life, it would absolutely be Li Moying. However, he didn't dare to show this in the sect, otherwise Li Moying could just crush him to death using just one finger. Ping gritted his teeth as he hissed. How do you know Li Moying? When Morong Fei had asked him to come and kill her, she only mentioned that Huang Yueli had offended her sister Morong and on a short note, ever mentioned Li Moying's name. After all, Morong Fei was extremely intelligent. She had asked Zhuo Fangning to come and kill his rival and love's fiancé. If Zhuo Fangping were to find out the truth, perhaps he might not be willing to come. After all, if Li Moying was married, Zhuo Fangping would have more chances to get into her heart. So the surprised look on his face was not faked at all. Huang Yueli raised her eyebrow as she observed the expression on his face. When he heard Li Moying's name, the man in front had indeed expressed a vengeance glare. It looked like both of them had some enmity, but he didn't seem to know her relationship with Li Moying. That was weird. If it wasn't because of Li Moying, why would a fifth-degree realm practitioner sought her out and, without a word, try to kill her? In this lifetime, she seemed to not have provoked such a powerful enemy yet. Thinking of this, she suddenly got an idea and thought of the other possibility. Could it be that you're sent here by Morong and I? You can also listen on. When Morong Ni's name was mentioned, Zhuo Fangping gave a snigger. So, you actually know what bad deeds you had done? Huang Yueli raised her eyebrow as she inquired. What do you mean by that? Morong and I, what did she say about me? Zhuo Fangping wanted to continue, but he suddenly remembered Morong Fei's instructions that this matter shouldn't be brought up. He forcefully swallowed back his words. Wretched lass, what are you trying to find out by chirping nonstop? I will never tell you who is the one who wants you dead. You can throw whatever schemes you have in your head away and lick my shoes obediently. Zhuo Fangping's face turned more and more sinister as he tried to make a grab for her. Huang Yueli shifted her position in an attempt to avoid him, but as the distance between them were very near to each other and her profound energy had been completely depleted, there was no way she could hide from him, and eventually she was caught in the neck by Zhuo Fangping. Little slut, didn't you want to escape? How about now? Zhuo Fangping hissed through his clenched teeth. Although Huang Yueli's life was already in the hands of others, but she didn't express much panic on her face. On the contrary, she calmly asked, Actually, you're from Li Moying's sect, right? Zhuo Fangping's hand trembled as his entire body jolted. He had never ever thought that Huang Yueli was able to tell where he had originated from, and so accurately without any error. Impossible, this was impossible. How could she tell where his origins were? He had not leaked out his identity from the start till now, and even if he almost divulged some information, but that was only to state that Li Moying and him were acquainted. However, Li Moying was a peerless talent known by all in the South Sky region, so even if he was acquainted to him, it wasn't anything strange, and it was not enough to prove that they were from the same sect. So this last should be making a wild guess? Right, that must be it. He absolutely cannot fall into disarray. Zhuo Fangping squinted his eyes as he hid the puzzlement on his face and said sternly, You're going to be dead person soon, so why bother to make wild guesses? Did you think that by making pointless delay in time, you'll be able to be acquitted of death? However, Huang Yueli didn't seem to hear what he said and continued deducing. I have sufficient proof to say such a thing. Firstly, there are not many experts among the people who I know. So to have the ability to find such an expert like you to assassinate me, either you're Li Moying's enemy, or it would be Morong and I, that unruly young Mississippi. Besides that, when you heard their names earlier, your response was rather intense, so it's obvious that you know them. Secondly, for a fifth-degree realm expert like you to assassinate such a lowly character like me, you actually wore a human skin mask before you took action. As the saying goes, a guilty person conspicuously protests his innocence. Doesn't this mean that you're afraid of me or other people here that will recall your real looks? You don't dare to reveal your own face. So who are you afraid of? Who would have such power and ability to exact revenge on you? The only person around me can only be Li Moying. Zhuo Fangping's heart thumped hard, and he was unable to control his emotions momentarily, almost jumping up in fright. How could this wretched lass tell that he was wearing a human skin mask? The mask on his face was a third-tier, upper-level profound armament, and had been imitated to perfection. One just needed to inject a little bit of profound energy, and it would merge with one's skin perfectly, unable to tell the difference. How could this country last hell? By right, a country bumpkin like her should not have even heard of such a thing like a human skin mask. You can also listen on. Just as Wafang Ping was figuring out his misgivings, Huang Yueli continued talking again. Thirdly, which is also the most important point, that is the long sword that you are holding. I'd seen Li Moying welding an identical sword as well. He once told me that this was your sect's specially refined long sword, and any practitioners who had reached the 5th degree realm will be able to obtain it. In total, you must have come from the same sect, and according to my conjecture, you must have taken Murong Ni's entrustment to help vent her anger, right? She is really an unruly and arrogant sex, young Mississippi. She was obviously at fault in the first place, but still want to come and exact revenge on me, and even wanted to claim my life. I really regret that I had given Li Moying face and didn't kill her. Huang Yueli's calm and collected tone seemed like she wasn't the one who was held up by the neck. A wave of peril swirled in Zhuo Fangping's heart when he heard her words. He had never thought that this ordinary girl would be able to observe that clearly and make such a logical and detailed deduction. Her guesses were not too far off from the truth. The only point that was different was the person who had ordered him to kill Huang Yueli was not Murong and I, but Murong Fei. But the reason Murong Fei told Zhuo Fangping was that Huang Yueli had bullied Murong and I and challenged the prestige of their sect. That was why in Zhuo Fangping's ears, there was no difference between the two. Zhuo Fangping's expression was unsettled, and he quickly thought of another problem. What relationship do you have with Li Moying? How did you see Li Moying's specially crafted longsword? And why did he tell you about the longsword's history? Hearing her talk about Li Moying every second, it was as though she was very close to that terrifying #1 talent. But her origin was from the weak little South Yu kingdom. So how could she possibly know Li Moying? Huang Yueli threw him a glance and said, "Me? I'm Li Moying's fiancé, of course. I know you and Li Moying have a feud, and you can kill me directly. But Li Moying will definitely look for you to exact revenge." Zhuo Fangping obviously had a feud with Li Moying, and if there were any other ways, Huang Yueli would never choose to expose her relationship with Li Moying, which might infuriate Zhuo Fangping further and made him do anything extreme. But now, Zhuo Fangping was obviously not going to let her off, so no matter what she said, it wouldn't make any difference, so she had no choice but to bring Li Moying out. It was because when she mentioned Li Moying, she could tell that there was no only hatred and jealousy in Zhuo Fangping's eyes, but there was also a kind of fear, a fear that arose from the inner depth of his heart. Only a peerless genius like Li Moying would have such deterrent force. Just hearing his name alone would make his enemies tremble uncontrollably. As she had no other options to choose from, Huang Yueli could only wish that the other party would fear Li Moying taking revenge and give up the idea of killing her. Although the possibility was low, but this was her only chance. As expected, when Zhuo Fangping heard her words, he was stunned for a few moments. But not long after, he suddenly started laughing madly. "Ha ha," laughed Daimi. "You claim you're Li Moying's fiancé? Who are you trying to cheat? If you were to claim that you're Li Moying's sister, I might believe. As for his fiancé, he would not even lay his eyes on junior sister Murong. So what could he possibly see in you? A malnourished bean sprout." You can also listen on. Junior sister Murong? Was he referring to Murong and I? Something seemed to flash past Huang Yueli's mind when she heard what he said, but she didn't manage to capture that thought. Zhuo Fangping apparently didn't believe in what she said, and had lost his patience as he controlled her meridians. Huang Yueli could not move a single bit, and as entire body turned feeble, she fell on her back onto the ground. Damn it, Huang Yueli cursed in her mind. This Zhuo Fangping really wasn't a gentleman. He actually treated such a delicate young lady in such a vicious manner. And why was it that every single time she told someone that she was Li Moying's fiancé, no one actually believed her? This stinky man, although he was a wee bit handsome, his power was a bit more powerful, and his status was much higher, but surely she, Huang Yueli wasn't that bad, right? Even though this marriage agreement was a makeshift stratagem, but was there a need for other people to mock at her? This really made her feel emotionally stuffed. As Huang Yueli fell, her gaze shot to the behind of Zhuo Fangping as she blinked her eye. On a huge tree not too far away from Zhuo Fangping was a little golden, red bird sapling hiding among the dense leaves. It was anxiously looking towards this direction as its two little claws couldn't help but keep fidgeting around, feeling especially unsettled. If it hadn't been for Huang Yueli, who kept comforting it with her gazes, he wouldn't be able to bear it any longer and flew over here. On seeing Huang Yueli's last glance, it turned more anxious than ever. As Huang Yueli's contractual spiritual pet, Little Phoenix and her could be said that their minds and hearts were interconnected. Little Phoenix was very clear that what Zhuo Fangping had told Huang Yueli earlier, including the guesses and analysis of his identity, was actually not to delay the time or to anger the other party, but was for it to hear. After Zhuo Fangping had defeated Huang Yueli, he had also injured Little Phoenix and Little Vulture, but had not bothered about them since. Since Little Phoenix was an ancient spiritual beast, he had recovered around 30 to 40% of his strength. Although his power was just that much, but at least its movements were not hindered anymore. So Huang Yueli had commanded it not to come too close, and using this method, she spoke out all her guesses so that Little Phoenix would know about it and deliver a message to try and inform Li Moing about this news. If she was really killed, then at least Li Moing would be able to exact revenge for her. Huang Yueli had wanted to extract more inside stories from Zhuo Fangping, but not knowing why. The term fiancé seemed to agitate his senses as he completely lost his patience and stuck immediately. If she died, Little Phoenix would not be able to show his physical body outside of the Sky Phoenix ring and would be instantly retracted back into it, to wait for the next master to awaken it. Because of that, Huang Yueli had felt that her life was coming to an end and used a glance to hint Little Phoenix for him to go quickly. Even if she had to die, it had to spread the news out to Kai Wei and the rest who were still alive outside the forest before she died. But Little Phoenix repeatedly hopped around on the tree, refusing to leave. Two watery eyes were tearing as its heart was filled with reluctance. It hadn't been busy to get out of the Sky Phoenix ring, and he had even found a master who could cook tasty chicken drumsticks, so he didn't want her to die like this. Why was he only a young sapling phoenix? If he had been a powerful and mighty big phoenix like its brother, would the outcome turn out differently? For the very first time, little Wang Kai wished he would grow up quickly and defend its master. You can also listen on. Little Phoenix hesitated for a while, but he knew that he didn't have much time and couldn't afford to waste any further. So in the end, it still reluctantly turned back to look at Huang Yueli, and fluttering its wings, it flew out of the forest. Zhuo Fangping walked over, and with a gloomy face, he squatted next to her. Little slut, make a guess which method I will use to kill you. Huang Yueli didn't say a word. Zhuo Fangping leaned in closer and said, What do you think if I severed your hands and legs, then throw you into the pig cage to wait for death, or smear your entire body with honey and throw you into the queen bee's beehive? Or maybe I can throw you into the white-headed meadow viper's hole and let them swallow you alive? His voice was doleful and scary, and in order to make Huang Yueli terrified, he intentionally listed several sinister and disgusting methods, just to hear her appalling screams. It would be best if he could make this sharp-tongued, wretched lass kowtow and beg for mercy, acting like a fool. However, there was no expression on Huang Yueli's face as she silently shut her eyelids. She naturally knew that the best option now was for her to beg for mercy. It wasn't because after Zhuo Fangping would let her off after begging for mercy, and in this way, she would be able to delay even more time and allow Little Phoenix to pass the message successfully. But even though she was very clear on this, she was unable to force herself to bow and bend her knee. Zhuo Fangping grew angrier upon seeing her peaceful look. He sniggered. Why? Did you think I won't do that? Hee, I'm just thinking these three methods are just plainly too easy for you. So I've thought of a marvelous idea. Although these three methods were already disgusting and horrifying enough, but Zhuo Fangping still felt that it was an easy death for her and had thought of another perverted way to deal with her. If it was any other young lady here, she would have already been frightened out of her soul. But Huang Yueli was extremely peaceful. Anyway, she had already died once before, so dying one more time didn't make any difference to her. If Zhuo Fangping had wanted to torment her, then she wouldn't obediently allow him to do so. Under no way of retreat, she would choose to self-explode again. However, that was the last resort, and she wasn't going to do it now. After all, she still had to gain a little more time for little Phoenix. Zhuo Fangping saw that she wasn't frightened at all and felt upset. To say such things to threaten someone was naturally to make the other party as frightened as possible. The more pitiful she cried, the tormentor would feel more pleasurable. If the tormented person had no reaction at all, then it was all meaningless and even feel a sense of dejection. Zhuo Fangping was currently in this state. Hence, he didn't hesitate any further and placed his hand directly on Huang Yueli's chest. Huang Yueli wanted to say something, but suddenly she felt a somber, profound energy instilled into her body. Dark attribute, profound energy. Dark attribute was a rare, profound energy and was extremely somber and strange. The instant the dark attribute, profound energy was instilled into her, she immediately felt cold like ice, as though all her energy had been frozen. Following that, she felt her brain hum, as though it was about to explode. Intense pain raided her next, and at the same time, her conscience seemed to turn fuzzy. Huang Yueli gritted her teeth as she tried her best to bear with this pain, but this was just the beginning. As time went past, the intensity of the pain became stronger and stronger. You can also listen on. Not only that, she could also clearly felt that her soul train had been invaded by the dark, attributed profound energy. Her conscience didn't seem to be under control and gradually drifted away from her. Huang Yueli knew things were taking a bad turn and hurriedly used her last bit of determination and bit hard on the tip of her tongue. Pain invaded her senses, and as the heavy blood stench filled her mouth before Huang Yueli became clear-headed slightly. Just at this moment, she heard Zhuo Fangping's sinister snigger. Haha, painful? Unbearable? Do you feel like dying because of the pain? But don't worry, I won't let you die, and in fact, this is just the beginning. Have you heard of the 7-character soul extinguishment skill? 7-character soul extinguishment skill? When the name of the cultivation method was transmitted to Huang Yueli's ears, it let her regain a slight sense of soberness momentarily, because this cultivation method was simply too vicious. Dark attributed cultivation methods excelled in changing the environment, creating hallucinations, and affecting one's conscience and condition. In the middle of a battle, it could often lead the enemy to enter a state of confusion, thereby obtaining victory. But the 7-character soul extinguishment skill was the most outstanding among the dark attributed cultivation methods, as the effects were the most sinister type. As expected, Zhuo Fangping continued, I think a country lass like you definitely have not heard of this. Then let me tell you more about it. After your brain had been invaded by my dark attributed profound energy, you'd become a living corpse with no conscience, and you will also possess animal instincts, often lusting for blood and very wanton. Very soon, you will behave like a dog, climbing on the ground on your 4 limbs and devouring raw meat like a dog, attacking any living animal the minute you see it, and bite it to death. More importantly, your body will also turn very, even if it was a roadside hound, as long as it's a male, you can also do it with it. Huang Yueli's conscience gradually turned fuzzy, but Zhuo Fangping was still sniggering nonstop, ridiculing and describing all sorts of miserable conditions which she might possibly encounter. However, she was unable to focus on what he was saying exactly. She knew the current situation was anything but assuring, because whatever Zhuo Fangping had said was not empty threats, but things that would really happen. In her previous life, she had personally witnessed a practitioner who was struck by the 7-character soul extinguishment skill. That person gradually lost his consciousness and became extremely loose and wanton, even worse than a dog. As that scene was too shocking, until now, she was unable to forget about it. If she had to turn into that manner, Huang Yueli felt that she would not be able to bear this sort of thing, and she would rather die. But this amount of time was simply too short. From the time where little Phoenix had flown away to the time when she had been injected with the dark, attributed profound energy invading her body, it had only been a quarter of an hour. It was not even enough for little Phoenix to fly too far, not knowing if it was enough for it to locate Kai Wei already. If only she could hold on a little while more. But once she lost her consciousness, she would lose the possibility of self-explosion and can only turn into a human-shaped beast with no conscience. Forget it. Even if no one could exact revenge for her, she would not be able to bear the fact that she would eventually turn into that way. Huang Yueli grinded her teeth and bit through her tongue once again, and using her last piece of consciousness and her strongest determination, she forced herself to adjust all the profound energy in her body to consolidate in her dantian. Zhuo Fangping had always been by her side, and he sensed the unusual movements of her profound energy and immediately reacted to it. Wretched lass, you want to self-explode? You can also listen on. Zhuo Fangping shot forward like an arrow and placed his right hand on the position of her dantian. His expression was malevolent as he yelled, "Want to self-explode? Do you think that once you're in my clutches, I'll let you do that? I said I'd let you go through utter misery, hoping to die, but you can't. With my profound energy suppressing you, you have absolutely no way to self-explode." Zhuo Fangping spoke with absolute self-confidence. In actual fact, it was exactly as it was shown. In order to self-explode one's dantian, Huang Yueli must consolidate all the profound energy in her body at that one point and at the same time unleash it out, thereby bursting her dantian. But Zhuo Fangping's cultivation was higher than her by several big realms. He only needed to use his profound energy to his advantage and control the flow of her profound energy. So even if Huang Yueli wanted to burst her dantian, it was an impossible task to do. However, Huang Yueli was laughing coldly in her heart. She had, after all, a flame spirit physique and had learnt various cultivation methods. Her heaven-level cultivation method, 9 Phoenix transformations, utilized an extremely abstruse way of operating the profound energy in her body. It was something that a person like Zhuo Fangping would not be able to understand. Hence, if she wanted to self-explode, Zhuo Fangping would not be able to stop her. Even if Zhuo Fangping had pressed on her dantian and kept exerting pressure on her, but the profound energy in Huang Yueli's body still gradually consolidated together. In a couple of breaths' time, it would be able to completely congeal. When it had reached this life and death juncture, Huang Yueli's heart was filled with regrets. Or it could be said that she had too many regrets, too many things that she wanted to do, but did not have the opportunity to do so. No matter if it was the previous life scheme or this life's love debt, she had no time to settle it at all. She finally had the chance to be reborn, but she had not expected that her lifespan in this lifetime was merely 2 months before it came to a sudden halt. And she would die under just a 5th-degree realm practitioner dubiously. Could it be that this was her fate? Even after reincarnation, she was still a lonely soul, never able to attain what she desired. She remembered Mu, Chungying, and uncontrollably thought of Li Moying. In her fuzzy conscious, the two men's looks layered together, and initially there was only a 30 to 40% similarity, but now it had completely matched up. That unexcelled #1 expert in her previous life and that overbearing, arrogant, peerless genius. Both of their figures were unable to be split apart. Huang Yueli felt that this must be an illusion at her brink of death, because both of their figures kept appearing repeatedly and many times. She was unable to tell who was who. Gradually, even their figures became fuzzy. Huang Yueli shut her eyes and prepared to stake all in one throw and self-explode once again. But just at the moment when she was about to ignite the profound energy, suddenly a voice could be heard from not too far away. "I say, Why is the forest so noisy and flames spewing everywhere? So it looks like someone had struck out against such a dainty young lady. Zhuo Ping had never expected anyone to appear at this moment. Furthermore, he had interrupted him at such a critical juncture. He suddenly turned back and stared at the figure behind him. Who are you? Why did you come to the forest at this timing? What is your intention? Huang Yueli sensed that the pressure and restriction on her dantian had lessened in that instance. When she heard that man's voice, she had initially thought it was her hallucination from the pain and pressure, but when Zhuo Ping suddenly stood up, it made her realize that someone had really appeared. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli tried her best to pry open her eyes and look towards the direction of the voice. However, no matter how hard she tried to open her big eyes, with her consciousness under the attack of the dark attributed profound energy, she was unable to focus and could only see a blurry white-colored figure, wandering a short distance away. Zhuo Ping stood up and raised his alert against the man in front of him. The white-robed man stood facing the wing as his sleeves fluttered lightly. That delicate features looked right out of a painting, unable to shift one's eyes away from that elegant demeanor, especially pleasing to the eye. After Zhuo Ping laid his eyes on him, he heaved a sigh of relief. It was because he could not sense any obvious profound energy fluctuations from this white-robed man, as though he wasn't a practitioner. In that instance, when he was called, Zhuo Ping had a shock. For someone who could break his momentum while he was utilizing his cultivation method, he was certain that it was a practitioner whose strength was much higher than his, so he turned around while staying alert. Now, at one glance, it was possible that he was a wealthy master who happened to pass by. As for how he managed to break his utilization of his cultivation method, perhaps it was just a coincidence. Zhuo Ping stared at the white-robed man and scorned coldly. What does it have to do with you? I'm warning you. Mind your own business. Hurry up and scram. I'll count to 3. If you still don't disappear by then, I don't mind taking your life. Saying that, he unleashed his vigor, and the surrounding air seemed to congeal slightly, attempting to force the white-robed man to retreat. However, unexpectedly, the white-robed man stood there, but his expression was still as calm and collected as before, not moving a single inch. Zhuo Ping sensed a hint of abnormality and hurriedly raised his power to his peak, but there was still no response from the white-robed man. The white-robed man pursed his lips slightly as he spat out a sentence frostily. Just like this, and you think you can claim my life? Zhuo Ping immediately knew he had messed things up. If one was unable to sense another's profound energy's fluctuations, there was only 2 possibilities. One was an ordinary person with no ounce of profound energy, and the other could only be that the other party's cultivation was much higher than him, so he was unable to investigate his true strength. Now that this white-robed man had no reaction to his 5th-degree realm's profound energy, then it would mean that he was not an ordinary person, so it could only be the latter. Zhuo Ping immediately retracted his profound energy and lowered his stance as he nodded his head furiously and bent over. This senior, are you passing by this forest? I'm extremely sorry to have disturbed you. Earlier what I had said, please treat that I'm passing gas and let me go. I have some personal feud that I must settle, and I had no intention to offend you. Please have mercy on me. I'll bring this person away right now. White-robed man didn't say anything. Zhuo Ping waited for a little while, but didn't get a response, and felt that he should be more tactful. So he hastily tugged at Huang Yueli's collar as he dragged her from the ground. His steps were at lightning speed, only thinking of leaving the boundary of the forest immediately. Even though he didn't know where this expert had appeared from, but he didn't want to complicate matters further. So changing a spot to deal with this wretched lass was all the same, as he didn't need to risk offending this unknown expert. However, just as he was about to pass by the white-robed man, the man stretched out his arm and blocked his way. Wait! Zhuo Ping's footsteps came to a halt as he raised his head to look at him. Senior, you are... The white-robed man lowered his chin as he gazed at Huang Yueli, who was by his feet. You can also listen on. By now, Huang Yuli's conscience had become very blurry, and she had been relying on her willpower to hold on. Her soul trace had always been stronger than ordinary people, so she could still barely figure out what was happening in the outer world. White-robed man's vision fell onto her, and he suddenly smiled. That's interesting. This lass is not of marriageable age. Her cultivation is also really bad as well. Why did you drag her to the outskirts and use the 7-character soul extinguishment skill on her? Could it be that you wanted to be rough with her, but met with resistance, so you flew into a rage out of humiliation? This, Senior, Zhuofangping was dumbfounded, as he had not expected such a powerful person like this white-robed man would actually ask this kind of question. Moreover, most powerful practitioners were cold and aloof and would barely smile to those weaker practitioners. Unfortunately, there was no affinity in that white-robed man's smile. On the contrary, it seemed rather evil, and a glint of ill intention flashed past that set of pupils. Zhuofangping turned anxious as he was not able to grasp this white-robed man's background. He hemmed and hawed. Senior, things are not what you're thinking about. This wretched lass, and I do not have that kind of relationship. I've been entrusted by someone else to kill her only— Oh, not that kind of relationship. White-robed man raised his eyebrow. Originally, if you really were unsuccessful at our asterisk and G her, I'd let you go. After all, being a Casanova is part of a man's nature. I can understand that part. But now that you say you're not, then I'm curious. Before you have satisfied my curiosity, then both of you must stay. When Zhuofangping heard what he said, he almost roared with laughter. What kind of logic was that? He was afraid that this senior who had passed by was bursting with righteousness and wanted to be chivalrous, to bring justice to him for forcing a girl who had yet to meet the marriageable age, so he hurriedly clarified himself. However, the white-robed man actually said if he would let him off if he was compelling the young lady, and if he wasn't, they had to stay? What kind of situation was this? He quickly added, No, Senior. I said it wrongly. This lass, was someone I wanted to play around, but I did not expect her to carry so many profound armaments on her, and unexpectedly she had hurt me. I was furious and rashly dealt her a murderous hand. Ha, that's not true, right? This lass has been injured by you from head to toe, but yet her clothes are still intact, and it cannot be more intact. So how could it be that you're forcing yourself on her? You dare to lie to me, so you'd better stay behind. Zhuofangping raised his head in surprise and met directly with the white-robed man's glare. White-robed man leaned slightly against a big tree with a lazy expression as he smiled willfully. His looks were exceedingly handsome, and with this smile, it was comparable to the highest quality jade, faultlessly talented. Zhuofangping's heart thumped loudly. This man's gaze was just too evil, and in connection to what he had said earlier, he was obviously making a fool out of him. No matter what he said, this white-robed man was not intending to let him leave easily. Zhuofangping was upset, but as the other party's power was much higher than his, he did not dare to show his rage and could only swallow this down, explaining in a nice tone. Senior, nothing can escape your eyes. I had indeed no intention to do anything improper to this lass. What I said earlier was the truth. I had been entrusted by someone else to assassinate her. But as there were some accidents, it had dragged until now. So, Senior, please have mercy and let us go. You can also listen on. Zhuofangping believed that he had already shown his most humble behavior as he weighed every single word he said, in order not to cause any displeasure to that white-robed man. But even after this, there was still a frivolous smile on the other man's face. Just now you said that you were forcing yourself on that lady, and now you say there's no such thing. Which sentence is the truth? From what I see, nothing you say is true. You're intentionally making a fool out of me. The white-robed man had started off with a smile, but when he spoke till the end, his intonation suddenly changed, and it suddenly became cold like ice. No, it's not like that. Please listen to my explanation. Zhuofangping was frightened by his stern tone until his back was filled with sweat, and, as his legs gave way, he kneeled onto the ground. White-robed man snorted coldly as he suddenly used his hand and held Zhuofanping's chin. He gave a dull groan, woo. A clump of blood spewed out from Zhuofanping's mouth, and he covered his mouth with his hands as he started unbelievably at the white-robed man, his face filled with terror. Shortly after, he coughed and spat out a chunk of his tongue from his mouth. He opened his mouth, making an ah sound several times, but he could only give out some blurry noises, not even able to say a single word clearly. The white-robed man replied coldly, "I have been in seclusion here for quite some time because of the serene and quiet environment. I had never expected that, because of you wreaking havoc here, not only have you caused me a major headache, you have also ruined an entire furnace of 9 transformations turnabout pill, which I had been refining for 81 days. Cutting off your tongue is just a small punishment. If you dare to appear in front of me again, don't blame me for taking your life." Zhuofanping begged mournfully with a woo-woo sound as blood kept dripping from the corners of his mouth. White-robed man asserted, "Still not going to scram?" His voice was soft as though whispers to a lover's ears, but this made Zhuofanping sweat profusely. He couldn't bother about the extreme pain in his mouth and turned around in a flurry as he grabbed Huang Yueli's clothes in an attempt to bring her along. White-robed man said again, "Why? Don't understand what I'm saying? She stays, you scram." Zhuofanping lowered his head as he looked at Huang Yueli longingly. He had spent a substantial amount of skills before he managed to catch this crafty lass. However, before he could kill her, he was asked to leave her there. But his 7-character soul extinguishment skill was a dark attributed heaven-grade cultivation method, and since Huang Yueli had already been inflicted by his dark attributed profound energy, he gauged that going mad would be a matter of sooner or later. If there was anyone in the entire soaring heavens continent who could save someone whose conscience who had been invaded by the dark attributed profound energy, it would only be the number 1 divine Dr. Liu Bian. It was impossible for other people. So even if she remained behind, her death was imminent. With this in mind, Zhuofanping no longer hesitated and hurriedly ditched Huang Yueli. The soles of his feet seemed to have been anointed with oil as he speedily left the forest. White-robed man didn't chase after him or even cast him a single glance. Instead, he walked to the front of Huang Yueli and squatted down. Huang Yueli's consciousness was now 90% blurry, with barely 10% still lucid. She could vaguely feel that Zhuofanping had already been chased away by the sudden appearance of this white-robed man. She knew that she was not going to hang on any longer. But now that things have come to such a pass, if she felt indignant, if she were self-explode here. However, the white-robed man lowered his chin and stared at her for some time with no signs of movements, or even any intention to save her. You can also listen on you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.